Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Peter Sumpton. I'm your host today. We've got some amazing content. This is the first webinar in a full week-long series of webinars. As you can see on the screen, we've got one each day this week, starting at 11 a.m. and each one will run for about 30 minutes because, let's face it, if we can keep you engaged for 30 minutes, we're doing a really good job as it is, and we don't want to sap up more of your valuable time. But we want to add value to your day. So what are we doing in this week-long webinar series? We want to keep you up to date with the latest information on certification, ongoing post-certification maintenance, and of course, everything Brexit related when it comes to UKCA and UKTA, which we've covered in the past. But if there's any updates, these will be in these webinars. An important note, each webinar and attributing slides will be available on our website, and you will all receive a link whether you've signed up, whether you're here or whether you're not, but you won't be able to hear me if you're not, so I don't know why I said that. You'll receive a link in an email with the recording, a link to the slides and a bit more information. And also there's still time to sign up and register for all the other webinars, as you can see on the screen this week. All you have to do is go to the BBA website, bbacerts.co.uk, and in the menu at the top, there is a webinar tab. Click on that and all the information is there. And what I'll do, if I can, I will put a direct link into the chat now. So you should all have that and you can sign up at your leisure. But let's get on with today's topic, shall we? Okay, so first and foremost, that is today's topic, how to interpret an agreement certificate. Just a little bit of background on the BBA, and this is the standard intro that I've been doing a couple of times. So for over 50 years, the BBA has been helping people and organizations in construction and manufacturing industries, and we help build confidence in the design, creation of products and services through the entire industry supply chain. We're looking to develop long-term partnerships with clients and help them grow in UK and global marketplaces, and that's so important in this day and age. The most important thing to remember above all this is the BBA will always remain reassuringly impartial. The BBA are actually a for-profit organisation limited by guarantee, which means we'll always look to reinvest in the industry for the benefit of you, the wider industry, and all the stakeholders. So just some numbers for you to digest. You might have seen this before. Over the 50 years, that big one in the top left-hand corner, we've issued more than 6,000 certificates to date. And we've also had an annual inspection rate of over 1,000 inspections over those 50 years. And there's some other numbers on there which are interesting and you can consume at your leisure. But that's enough of that. I want to get on to today's webinar. So for the first webinar, we wanted to cover a topic that we felt needed some clarity. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to basics and we're going to discuss the BBA Agrément Certificate in its completeness. What we'll do is we'll try and provide more information around things to look out for, both as a manufacturer or a producer of products, but also potentially as someone who uses an agreement certificate for certain elements across the supply chain, or as a valuable part of sense checking a product's suitability for any type of project. But what does this all mean? What are you going to get out of this webinar? Well, we're going to cover understanding the value of an agreement certificate, what it covers, but what it doesn't as well, the details that make up an agreement certificate, some common misconceptions, and as always, we'll have an opportunity for you to ask your burning questions with a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function on this GoToWebinar. You can ask at any time and we'll try our best to cover all the questions at the end. But it's massively important to note that if we don't answer them on this webinar, we will get back to you. 100% promise that. So please do use this feature. Okay, that's enough of that. On to our presenter today, Ramona Donnelly. So Ramona is an operations manager in engineering at the BBA. And she's been with the BBA for nearly 8 years. So she does know her stuff, which is fantastic. Delighted to have her on board for this presentation and webinar today. So without further ado, that's enough from me. Ramona, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Peter, very much for the introduction. I certainly hope I do know my stuff. I've been working in a certification for over 15 years now. So without delaying any further, today I would like to try and take you all through preventing failure. And how do we do that is by actually learning how to interpret what an agreement certificate actually means. So how do we do that? At the BBA, we help our market mitigate risk through providing reassurance that the certified products and systems are fit for purpose. But what if understanding of the fit for purpose significance is wrong? Then there is potential to undermine the confidence of the certificate and of the product that is being used. In this webinar, we will help you, or at least we'll try to help you understand more about the nuts and bolts that make up an agreement certificate and why each page of this important document should never be read in isolation of the others. I will try and explain the understanding of the entire value of an agreement certificate. And I will do that by breaking down on what the certificate actually covers and what it doesn't. And we will also go around about the common misconceptions of an agreement certificate, because there seem to be a lot of them out there, and how such misconceptions could lead to critical product suitability and failure. So the structure of an agreement certificate is usually made up of a number of parts, and really what is very important is that no part of it should ever be read in isolation from the others, and I will explain why. So first of all, the agreement certificate consists of a front page which provides a very high level overview of the content. It follows by the regulations pages that apply to that product in the application that is being assessed. Then we have technical specifications, and generally these include drawings, details, measurements, components of the system, should this be one. And it follows also with information around the assessments that we have carried out and the technical investigations that concluded to the data and information that is being described in the certificate. We also run over some sections that detail items such as maintenance, recycling, relevant risks, logical considerations, for example, and so on. And lastly, the certificate will also make references to any additional resources that we have taken into consideration during certification. These may be documents, standards that we have applied, and other documents that help us interpret the results of that product or system. Because of this, an agreement certificate is an important document that is being used throughout the entire construction supply chain. And it's critical that it answers and provides information which enables the decision-making process or decision maker. It also can be somewhat quite complex to interpret, and it should never be read in isolation of any supporting information contained throughout the entire certificate. Therefore, if the product or the system and their uses is not described in the certificate, it means they have not been assessed, and so they have not been verified. So let's split now what actually a certificate covers and what it actually doesn't cover. First of all, what it covers. It covers important information about the product, the system, and the appropriate use and applications. It also provides and covers short and long-term performance that have been assessed, information required for satisfactory delivery, site handling, installation and maintenance, and where and how a product complies with the relevant building regulations. In some situations, we also cover information around appropriate installers, and if there is ISO accreditation, this would be made available in the certificates. Most importantly, what a certificate doesn't cover. It certainly doesn't cover any promotional or instruction manuals relating to the design, commercial distribution, and installation of the product. This should always be looked up at the manufacturer's website or requested from the manufacturer, because they are very specific to their products and they will provide all the information necessary. It does not provide any guarantee or warranty. An agreement certificate is not a guarantee. So therefore, this is one aspect that we will discuss later on, because it could provide a great confusion to end users. A certificate doesn't provide any detail around where the product is not fit for purpose, nor the consequences of potential poor installation. And any unregulated attributes that may be used as promotional information, such as the circular economy, carbon content, we do not normally cover them unless these have been specifically tested and verified as part of the certification process. Lastly, we do not cover detail on the suitability for application on particular sites. Therefore, if the end users wishes to use a product certified under Agrément Certificate for a specific project, they absolutely must ensure that the product is fit for the application that is being proposed to, and if not, verified with us or a structural engineer, a suitably qualified structural engineer, to ensure that the performance of the product can be applied to that particular site. We cannot provide BBA Agrément certificates specific to sites. The applications are generic, but not the projects individually. So let's talk now about some common misconceptions around our Agrément certificates. To understand the true value of an Agrément certificate is really more than just viewing it as a tick box exercise. There's so much more to this, and I'll go around through some examples of the most common misconceptions around the purpose of an Agrément certificate. That some of them would be that the product is covered entirely, full stop. Just because it has a BBA agreement, it means it's covered. What does this covered actually mean? Cover for what? For any application? For any use? Certainly not. And this is described in the Agrément certificate if read correctly. I don't need to read the entire certificate. The front page is enough. Again, to actually get the true value of an Agrément certificate, one must read the entire document to understand where it is being used, how, the values that are declared, the performance, the installation guidance, or overview of the installation, who can install the product and who can't, and specific limitations to the product or system that is actually covered by the certificate. An Agrément certificate is just a state of compliance. As provided further up, it's certainly not just a statement of compliance, and just because a product comes with a BBA Agrément certificate, it doesn't mean that no one should read anything. And unfortunately, I have had experiences of site project managers, for example, that were aware of BBA Agrément certificates but have never looked at them. They just verify the product they are using on site, as an agreement certificate, and that was more than sufficient to them. The certificate is where the process ends. We will go further on in discussions, and certainly at the end of this week we will discuss in more detail the surveillance, the maintenance of a certificate, to explain that why the certificate process itself is not where the whole process ends, is because it is actually going through a maintenance system. All similar products that have a certificate are equal. I cannot explain and provide sufficient examples of why this is incorrect, because whether a product is exactly the same as the one next to it, they are their own products. They are individuals, exactly like humans. Each have their own characteristics, and therefore, even if they are used in the same application, one has to actually read everything about the product, potentially the installation itself, differs slightly, the performance, it will always be different because manufacturers make their products the best they can to compete with each other. The BBA conducts all testing upon which a certificate is based. At the BBA, we do try to provide and we offer the option for a manufacturer who is generally the applicant for a certificate to submit their product for all the testing necessary towards certification through the BBA. However, this is not the case. Whilst the BBA can offer this service, many manufacturers may already have tests from accredited laboratories, and the BBA is bound, as any other notified and accredited body, to accept them. Therefore, we do not conduct all the testing necessary towards a certification process. But as I said, we do have this facility and we do offer it. BBA certificates are mandated. BBA certificates are definitely not mandated. They are a free choice of the manufacturer, and what they provide and demonstrate, they help demonstrate the product's performance, which leads to gaining more competitive market, but they're certainly not mandated. This product is BBA approved and therefore automatically complies with building regulations. I believe that we all know that building regulations are our legislation. They give guidance on the requirements that products and systems have to meet, that once they are being assembled into a building, together meet a said building regulation. But just because a product in itself is certified by the BBA, it doesn't necessarily mean it meets the regulation. It does, and it can contribute for the whole building to meet the regulation if it's installed correctly and all the processes followed appropriately by the installers and contractors. Every outcome of the way a product is product certified is used will conform to requirements. As described just above, if a product is not installed and used correctly for the purpose, for the application is intended to, then it will not conform to the requirements, and in most cases this will lead to the BBA agreement certificate to be invalidated. So what critical things we need to note about the agreement certificates? We need to make sure that we read the certificate in full and not just the front page. Take note of what it actually is covered and what it isn't, and ask whether all that is described in the certificate is suitable for the project that is intended to go in. Ensure also that the commercial pressure behind the product launch is not actually risking the quality and acceptability of use. And take note of claims that do not support the detail in the certificate, and ensure you check the validity of a certificate on any product intended for application, because certificates could be withdrawn at any time and they may no longer be valid. A certificate is not a guarantee or a warranty. As I explained previously, it is a description, it is an independent choice of a manufacturer to have their product assessed to demonstrate fit for purpose for a specific application. Therefore, each certificate is designed to be a detailed summary of the assessed scope and bespoke to the application for the specific product or system. The certificate is not a single snapshot in time, but is an ongoing life cycle. The Agrément Certificate provides so much more information than a single test, and certainly more than conformity markings like UKCA and CE marking, which are the minimum level for an independent certification. Apologies. The certificate is actually a thorough process and document that provides ongoing assurance through surveillance, again, which we will discuss on Friday morning. The BBA also wants to know about any misuse, discrepancies, and other anomalies that may affect the use of the certificate and its validity. We have products, systems, and we know the processes are constantly evolving as with the technology. And we want to engage with the entire industry to continue to drive safety and quality in the products and systems in the construction. This means that if something or someone identifies something that doesn't appear consistent, or whether a certificate holder is attempting to use a certified product in an incorrect way, or even if an organization, not the certificate holder, a completely different organization, may be using false certificate numbers to promote products, we would like to hear about it so that we can take the necessary steps to curb misinformation and misuse. And lastly, an Agrément certificate identifies the context the product is fit for purpose in. And this means that we do not cover the implied. Certificates are written in the positive. They specify where the product is to be used and in what capacity. They are not created with an implied double negative. For example, just because the certificate does not specifically say you may not use the product in this situation, it implies that it can be. If there is any uncertainty around the use of a product, please always make sure to verify with us to have a clear understanding. And with a few minutes to spare, we managed to get through the end. Thank you very much for listening. I hope it was useful, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Ramona. Really interesting and detailed way of looking at a Agrément certificate and the important parts, and especially the misconceptions, which are hugely important to cover. Just got a couple of questions here. First one is, how can I or where can I go to make sure an Agrément certificate is still valid?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, on our website page, if you scroll right to the bottom, there is a section where you can search for the certificate, whether you know the certificate number, whether you know the product name, or whether you know the company, which is the certificate holder. You could do a quick search as a first choice. If it doesn't come up, it potentially means that the certificate may be either suspended or withdrawn. So if you're unsure or if you have difficulties in actually searching for the certificate on our website, you can always phone the BBA or send a question, and one of our colleagues in the technical department will always be able to do a quick search and confirm the status of that certificate.
Fantastic. So just a couple more questions just to wrap this up. The first one, I think it's more about achieving Agrément certification. So it's kind of a double question, ask it in two parts. How long does it take to achieve an Agrément certification?
Yes, this is a more difficult question indeed. It really varies. It varies on many factors, to be honest. In general, we are really trying to achieve a timescale of around 9 months, but this is based on assumptions that all the necessary test data applicable to that product for the intended use is available from accredited laboratories, and the test reports are still valid, in which case the certification process can start with no hiccups at all. But as we know, in reality, nothing is perfect, and it can take longer than that. So we assess every single application on a case by case, because majority of them are quite bespoke in what the requirement is, the desire of the applicant for the product certification is. So we will discuss with every single client on an individual basis and try and provide the best service as we can.
Excellent. I think you've sort of already answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there any way to speed up that process?
A lot of the time, it really depends again on the level of availability of information. If a manufacturer, for example, is right in the early days of trying to get the product through certification process, and they don't really know where to start, they can always contact the BBA and we can guide you through this process. We could provide an initial assessment of the product at that moment in time, and assuming that there is no test data available, let's say, we could provide a mini report by which we say what information, what standards are applicable, and what areas of performance the manufacturer will have to demonstrate towards the certification process. So we offer, although perhaps not as known, prototype assessments. In this process, we actually get involved in the early stages. We cannot provide consultancy, so I just want to make sure that I clarify that from the beginning. We cannot provide consultancy whatsoever, but we can assess the status of a product in the early days, what is and is not available, and just confirm what the requirements are. If the product has already got data available, we can review what is already available and what status that data is, whether it's acceptable to a certification, and we also confirm what is missing, and whether a manufacturer wishes to go ahead with the certification process. We can provide quotations which include also the tests required. As I mentioned earlier, in the point making about BBA providing all the tests, we have the facilities to provide all the tests necessary. So should someone wish to go through that and accept, we can quote all the tests. In that case, of course, the process of certification can take longer, because it obviously depends on the duration of the tests required. So yes, have I answered the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, in more detail than I was expecting. That's superb. So we are a bit short of time, so I'll just wrap things up
Yes,
here. We've got one question, but it's more of a generic question. Yeah, Katie asked if they'll receive a copy of the presentation after the webinar. Absolutely. So you'll receive an email with the recording, a link to this recording, as well as an email to the web page, of which I will share in a moment, which will have all the recordings, all the slides on, and all the information to sign up for the other presentations and webinars that are going on throughout this week. Each day this week, we have a different presentation at 11 AM. So let me send that link to everybody again. Same link as it was previous. So just to finally say thank you so much, Ramona, for joining us, imparting all your knowledge. Really, really appreciate your time. Big thank you to everybody in the audience and everyone that's listened and consumed the information and asked questions. I really, really appreciate your time. Just remember that every single webinar this week is at 11 AM. There's still time to sign up. Further info is on that link that I've just provided you all. So from me, Ramona, and the BBA, until tomorrow, it's goodbye for now.
Goodbye, everyone. I'll see you everyone else on Friday.